use the same techniques to do all sorts of like openings. Going a bit next to the line now. And then I did a circle. I want to try if it works as a circle. Never tried that actually. So I've stitched kind of these two fabrics on top of each other. And then I want to cut this in the middle. This is actually my seam allowance. And I cut it kind of a straight line in the middle. It doesn't have to be perfect. But what has to be perfect is I want to also cut into these corners here. But not cutting the thread. Actually should have done a bit nicer corners. And once I've done this, I can flip it. And iron it. And I get really nice, clean openings like this. Yeah, you can make buttonholes like this, but you can also make openings, for example, for a drawstring if you want to do the waist like this. And it's much cleaner and easier than like a buttonhole stitch with the home machine, which always looks messy. Or eyelets are also an option, but they can fall out. And this one, so if we wanted to make it also less open and just a slit, we can fold a piece down, you see? From the back here. Then I would need the iron, and I can just fold it down like this. And then stitch it to that little bit of seam allowance I got here. But you don't have to, but then you can do it like, where is it, that lip? Create this lip or have full, then it also covers it a little bit, you know, and it's not too much. Let's try that in circle. I actually am not sure if that works. Always on the like right side on right side. Let's give it a try. It can also be like a funky detail, but this is something you can do in the waistband. You know, stitching round is a little bit annoying. That is actually easier with the home machine. Or not really round, it's more like a octagon or something. Because I've crossed the other stitch, top, top, top. Then again, we want to cut this, and this time we want to cut it really more like a star. If we don't cut it like this, we need a lot of slashes, otherwise we can't flip it because it's kind of round shape. But then again, reverse it. Oh, the stitch is broken. Yeah, broke a little bit, but also holes are possible. Some fierce ironing and it's really flat, and you can also make it smaller and make kind of like two. And then another thing, something very something you should start practicing is how do we put things around the corner like this. Let's find a nice corner. There is a way. So we stitch it like this first. And it's really something you should practice. So we try to keep in mind like 1 cm seam allowance. Reverse the beginning a little bit. And then, oh damn, I didn't give another thing. We have to stitch and then flip. And it doesn't work sometimes, so we have to lift our needle and we have to slash the seam allowance here into the corner. And then we are able to flip our fabric all the way around. And sometimes it's good to try to get all of the seam allowance here straight, so use a pin or something sharp. Let it down again and stitch the rest. Right, this is always blocking. Let's see if that one was nice. Yeah. So this one, try that, you know, like you stitch into the corner and then you have to lift the needle, like lift the footer, but leave the needle inside and cut into the seam allowance so you can like open it. It's the seam allowance of the corner, not the rectangle. And then you can move it, like you can flip and go around the corner. So while you're playing with your skirts, give that a go. Try that for your folder. Try to make me like a nice sample. And be a bit more neat than me. I just do it always quick. You know, you can take your time, you know, it's okay. But these are some like very basic techniques that are very helpful, especially around the corner. If you want, you can also try to cut kind of something round and try to stitch it again together. Because then you get one round this way and one like kind of curve out and curve in, and you have to match them. So when you stitch, let's do that. Because you think it's easy, right? But when we stitch it back together, they curve completely different directions. You see, like one goes this way, one goes that way. So we have to stitch, and now you will see it will shift obviously because I didn't add seam allowance, right? I just cut it. So it will not be like perfect afterwards. But we have to kind of, okay, this is a straight piece, and then we have to start moving our fabric towards each other. And this one is easier, but it's also unbiased. You know, when you cut a circle, it's not straight grain anymore. So we cannot do it too much because otherwise we pull one side. So we always have to kind of try to arrange while we're stitching, but not pull it too much and not stitch it kind of into little pleats or something. Then we flip it, you know, and we're back together. And also here, if I see like the seam allowance here is very wavy, so traditionally we would cut out little triangles. We always try to make our seam allowance not be annoying. We try to kind of cut bits away. See, wherever I cut these triangles out, now if I do it like this, it kind of falls better together. I can cut even more. And if I wanted to do an open seam, I have to slash this one as well, because the curve does not want to fold over at all. Only if I cut it, it's possible to fold it. So try these things a little bit in between, so you get a bit more practice for like more difficult sewing. I don't know where my holes went. That is really like fun to do actually. So try and play around with that. Do different shapes, you know, see what you can get. The important part is always that when we cut it,